All right, let's see. Let me see what time it is. Well, we have to, I don't ever start till 7:03, so actually it's 7:02. We have one more minute. Hello, Sabrina. Hi, Lisa Nowicki. Hi, everybody. Hi, Liz. Hi, Jennifer. Hi, Lisa Seeds. Hi, Matthew. We've been chewing the fat with Matthew, who's on a boat somewhere in the Mediterranean at 2 o'clock in the morning. Hi, Sonia. Hi,
Hi, everyone.
Hi. All right, let's see. Oh, okay, we have everybody, so I'm going to go ahead and start. Okay, welcome to class number 19, Yikes. Don't forget that we are off next week for the 4th of July. So everybody gets to be off next week. And today, at this time, we are going to check in as your MOST form and or your Do Not Resuscitate form. So is anybody just delighted to go first? Okay,
Well,
what about you?
I will just because I have it up, and I'm afraid my internet could do something weird at any time. So let me
Okay,
go
Matthew.
first. So our New Mexico form basically is.
Would you like us to share? Can you want to share your screen?
Let me see if, yeah, let me see if I can.
Okay. So if you can, we'll see if we can make you a co-host. Mark will see if he can make you a co-host.
Shouldn't be necessary. I think everybody has the ability to share by
Totally
default.
awesome. Totally awesome, Mark.
Let's see. Oh, there it is. Okay. Oh, sorry. Let's see. Share screen. Oh, there it is. Okay, can you see that? Can you guys see my screen?
We sure can.
Okay.
Yes.
So this is the New Mexico form, and the biggest things on it, I mean, I think probably all our forms can be pretty standard, but the New Mexico form, the two things I thought were very interesting is there's some place in here it discusses that this form is valid even if the whole thing is not filled out. The thing that's most important is if there are missing pieces in the form or things have been passed, it's okay as long as the form has got to be signed. That's the one most important thing. So it's very, very standard, almost generic, but there was a New Mexico form. And there was that one caveat. So I thought that was good. I mean, you could even do it down and dirty and get in just the most relevant thing that things need to happen. The do not resuscitate form I don't have up, but same thing. They're very specific that in fact they kind of match each other. That the as long as it's got, there are two things it has to be. It has to be a proper person. It can't be, it can't be something strange, and it does have to be signed for it to be good. And I tried to, when I was on a bus today running around, I was trying to do this. I was trying to fill one in on an online form, and it let me do it. The other thing is it didn't necessarily have to be signed at that exact moment. I just had to say it would be signed in the future, and I had to say the city that it was signed in, or it would be signed in.
That's kind of cool. That's good.
Okay.
That's great. Thank you. Thank you. So that was the do not resuscitate as part of that. Is that part of that?
This is the most, but there is a DNR plan shared, but there is a box to check for do not resuscitate.
Okay,
Hmm.
thank you. That's great. So who wants to go next? I'll let you all we'll gently just do this. I
I'll
think,
go.
oh, okay. Go ahead, Lisa, and then Luann. Okay, go ahead.
Okay. Okay. So our DNR in Florida, it can be downloaded from the Florida Department of Health, but it's got to be on yellow paper to be legally binding and, of course, signed by a physician, or I think a nurse practitioner can sign it too, or a DO, because there was a statute on it that I looked up, like I think 458, which signifies that a medical assistant, meaning like a nurse practitioner or PA, can sign it too. So I was surprised about that. And I looked up it was called a POLST here in Florida. And that I didn't look at the actual form, but it talked all about it. And it like just goes more in depth about the quality of care, or the things that you do and don't want done when you are they talked about you should only be done like if there's a possibility that you could die within a year. And probably just, medications, and maybe some people do want compressions but don't want to be intubated, or, vice versa. I don't know. It just was more specific about actual the way they would want to be treated if it was like their last few days. So yeah, I learned something new. I didn't, because honestly, I've never seen a POLST form at the hospital. So I was surprised about that, because it seems like something I should have seen. I've worked there for a while, but a lot of DNRs there. So yeah.
Thank you. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, Luann, you raised your hand again, or next, actually, sorry.
That's okay. So I don't know if you're going to be able to see this. I will just give you, it's 2 pages.
Yeah.
Okay. There's a distinction in the hospitals. Hospitals have DNR forms, are right on the front of the chart. And the POLST form, I will say, really directs, it's statewide. So in the EMS department, every county has a different EMS authority, but there's a state EMS authority. And so this particular form is statewide, and it targets EMS because that's where the problem is. It's not so much in the hospital, where you have a doctor, you have a hospitalist, or, internist, or you've already got a trust and a will, and all of that is in the hospital's chart. The problem comes outside of the hospital. And so this form has to be discussed with a physician. If a PA or a nurse practitioner is engaged to fill out this form, a physician, I think, needs to supervise it. And the front page is divided with your initial CPR. Then you have medical interventions, you have artificial nutrition, and then there's the information and signatures. And I think it's very clear. The state has, so you have the California EMS Authority. They have a beautiful website, and they will give you a 1-page, I guess, infogram, and tell you basically what this is about and why it's important. And there was also an alert that the Epic charting system is generating their own pulse model, and that it can't be used or will not be recognized in the state, which I thought interesting. So anyway, very well regulated, and there's many options on here, but I do appreciate the fact that they do want a physician to review this and to make sure that the patient is clear about it. They do suggest that you print this off in a bright colored paper so it's easy to find if paramedic comes, EMS crew comes, and so anyway, there we go.
Thank you, Luann. Okay, go ahead, Lisa Seeds. Or you have a question?
No, I'll be next.
Awesome.
So when I looked up the forms for Virginia, apparently they adopted the POLST form a few years ago, I think in 2021. The problem is with the POLST, it seems to be standard, pretty much from state to state. There are some concerns that when it's not filled out properly, the patient may not get exactly what it is that they wanted. But there's been a lot of opposition between different communities. The diocese has been very vocal about it not being what they want, because of course, they feel like you should do everything in order to live. And some are viewing it as a contributing to the hastening of death and a backdoor to euthanasia, because and this is just some ethical currents that I was reading about it, which concerns me a lot, because I know my grandmother had a DNR. It was on bright yellow paper, and I knew exactly what she wanted, and I was there to speak for her. But I'm just concerned that there are people out there that are filling out these forms inappropriately, and you can't always tell what the doctor's name is because the signature on it could be scribbled. And so, when they do it here, they do the DNR, they suggest that you put it on your door, the back of your door, so that when EMS first comes in, they can see that DNR. And know what realm that they can go to, whether or not they want a full resuscitation, whether or not they want partial resuscitation, or whether or not they want ventilation. So I had looked at some of the other things involved in it. I think it's a great form myself. I think it gives people a chance to express their wishes. And to be vocal. But, like I said, you've got so many of these people that are in opposition. And I have concerns about that, because as an individual, I would want my wishes to be recognized and followed. I don't want a physician to say, you know what, I can't guarantee this, so I'm going to go ahead and do everything I need to do in order to make sure they survive. So, like I said, the POLST, I think, is an awesome piece of paper. Like I said, I'm glad that Virginia adopted it. There are multiple other states that, like you said, use the POST the most in the PULSE, which the PULSE is a POLST. POLST. But like I said, when I was doing my research, I was very, very concerned about that. It's not being followed like it should be followed by some individuals. And I want to know how we fix that.
Oh, Lord. You only have to go through the legislature, eventually. The medical societies, the medical society in in North Carolina were the ones that gave it to the legislature to make it a law. So
yeah,
that's a way I expect it to go through nursing associations or chapters of nurses of different types of nursing associations, but it was a long time coming in North Carolina. Took a long time.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you. Who wants to go after? Yeah, Jennifer.
Okay, well, since my partner in crime did all of the research there, I'm going to see if I can share my screen and actually bring up the form that I found since Lisa talked about it. Let's see. Uh-oh. Oh, I may have just gone beyond my capabilities. Let's see. Open system preferences. Uh-oh. Can anybody see that?
No.
No, okay, well, it's the POLST form that I brought up, and we're at the lake house, so I can't get the printer to work, but the POLST form has some of the same options. It's yes to CPR or no to CPR, full treatments, selective treatments, comfort-focused treatments, and it does need to be signed by a physician, nurse practitioner, or physician's assistant who have a bona fide relationship with the patient.
Oh, there it is. There you go. Thank you, Lisa Seeds.
Is that the POLST form, Lisa? Yeah,
Looks like,
yeah,
it says POLST on it. Yeah.
So, and kind of funny thing that Lisa just said, you know, you're supposed to post your info, your DNR for EMS. Now, I've got people around the clock for my dad at the house, and my primary knows where everything is. But after my dad got out of the hospital this last time, I went ahead and put a folder with all of his current medications, his DNR, and I can't remember what else. I don't think it was insurance information, but yeah, and I tagged it. I hung it on the sliding glass door, you know, with a label on it that says what all it's for. So that's about all I can handle right now.
That looks pretty good. Thank you both for that living demo that your assistant Lisa Seeds did. Thank you very much. Okay, who wants to go next?
I can go.
Okay, go ahead, Sabrina.
Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and share my screen. Okay, so let's see. Okay, can you guys see that now?
Yep. Yeah.
So I officially found my Arkansas Department of Health POLST form, which I was happy that it actually had an official logo. But I thought that the selective treatment option is kind of confusing and broad. Goal of treating medical conditions while avoiding burdensome measures. I don't think they quite understand that. That's okay. That's what I'm here for, to help explain that. We would need to probably detail it out right here. So when I saw that, I also looked up what the advanced care plan is, because that's what I have on myself. I have this advanced care plan because I feel like that is a little more detailed, like whether you can use like IV fluids, or, you know, whether you want CPR or tube feeding, blah, blah, blah. So this is what I currently use. But, you know, POLST form isn't bad. I'm just saying, a little ambiguous. And then I also found our official durable power of attorney, which I was happy about. And I found the DNR, which is not very exciting, but that's okay. I can print it out on pretty colored paper, but other than that, it's just basic. But yeah, I was proud of myself. Found all those things. You have to kind of dig in Arkansas. But yeah, there we go.
Congratulations again.
Thank you.
Good. Awesome. Okay, who wants to go next? So I think we only have one or two left. Liz or Sonia?
I can go.
Okay.
I found my form for Colorado.
Wow.
It looks a lot like yours. I found the National POLST website, and that's cool because it's got a map of the states that are currently partaking in the POLST. In Colorado, they call it the MOLST. I guess that's apparently the same thing. And then, so I also found it for New Hampshire because that's where my parents are. And my stepdad, my dad, they'd just given him one last week and he gave it to me so we could go through it together. So that is actually on our agenda to do tomorrow. And it goes into more detail than just the, like, more like what Sabrina was sharing, like all those details. And I haven't compared it yet to the 5 wishes to see if it has that, but that's another piece. I don't know, we did that a lot in Colorado, so I figure I'll do that with them too.
Awesome. Thank you. And Sonia, I think you were gone last week. I don't know if you have a MOST or a POLST form, or you can wait till a later time.
I just
that-
want to say that when I was having to do my CTs and MRIs, I was laughing because the voice that tells you to like go through the tube and stop and all that stuff, I was like, this is so familiar to me, and I don't understand what the voice is because it was an actual human voice. And after I did it like 3 times, I realized it sounds just like Sonia. And it really does. I was like, I know this voice. So Sonia, I just wanted to let you know you're the CT and MRI voice at my hospital. Okay, that's all. I'm sorry.
Thank you for that anecdote. Precious. Okay, Sonia. I don't know if you have your form tonight. If you don't have it, don't worry. Okay. I can't hear you. It looks like your head is moving. I can't hear you. And I
Don't
think,
see any activity on her microphone feed either.
yeah. And I think she's a little frozen also.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I guess what we'll do is go ahead. I think everybody else is shared for tonight, correct? Yeah. Got everybody.
I wanted to say one thing more about my form that I thought was really relevant after what Lisa said about, it can't be confusing. There was a line that I picked up earlier that said, where is it here? So choice of medical intervention and resuscitation must be clinically aligned, is how they
Oh,
put it, which sometimes New Mexico surprises me. And then they used an example, comfort care and attempted resuscitation are contradictory. So if you do something contradictory, that's where you're gonna throw a monkey wrench in the whole thing. So just make sure your language is super aligned. And then I wanted to say too, I love the 5 wishes, and in New Mexico, 5 wishes can legally take this place too.
oh,
So
okay.
now that I'm a provider, I would probably attach this right to the front of a 5 wishes.
Oh, that's awesome, Matthew. Thank you. That's not true in North Carolina, but it's very interesting.
New Hampshire has, when I was looking at theirs, they have an event coming up. It's like 4 different Mondays, maybe around September, and it's walking professionals through how to go through it with a patient. I thought that was possibly handy.
That is very handy. Sonia is signing in again. Hey, Sonia, can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you now.
Yeah.
Can you hear
Oh, we
me?
can hear you. Yes, we can.
Okay. Trying to log out of the other one.
Do you have
Yep.
a MOST or a POLST form to share? And if you don't, because you weren't here last week.
Well, I sent a copy of the POLST form to you. But I mean, it just looks like everybody else's. I guess
Okay,
it's kind of a
okay,
generalized form. And then I
okay.
also sent you a copy of the Oklahoma DNR form as well.
Okay, well, thank
Mhm.
you. Thank you. I don't think I've gotten it yet, but okay, it's great.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Mhm.
All right, so let's see, what we're going to do is just go ahead and I'm going to share my screen, and we are going to go through a few things about your presentations. And I don't have my glasses on. Okay, here we go. So here we go. And this is, I have all this stuff on my, the top of my screen, which I can't get off. Let's see. Oh, goody. Let's see. Wait a minute. Nope, that doesn't move. That doesn't move. Let's see. We're going to say, okay. Okay. That still doesn't move. Okay. Well, I'm just going to, you're going to have to stick with this for a minute till this other way. Oh, here we go. Okay. Here we go. Play from start. All right. So, we're going to talk about criteria for successful completion of the course, your case studies and presentation requirements for your volunteer presentations. And I want to share this quote with you by Eileen Caddy, who wrote the book Open Doors Within, who is the founder of The Fabulous Place in Scotland. And her quote is, "When you have love in your heart, you draw the very best out of everyone, for love sees only the best and therefore draws forth the best. Be not afraid, open up, hold nothing back, and let it all flow freely." So I just wanted to give you all that quote because doing this advocacy work, we're doing it from our heart and try not to be afraid because love is the best thing. Then I wanted to show you this little miracle that I saw my first monarch butterfly on Monday and walked outside to water and there he was. So I thought it was a magical day. Okay, so here's the criteria for successful completion of this course. And this just reiterates, if you miss a class, for each 2-hour class, you submit 2 paragraphs, 1 paragraph for each class, and you just send it to me. And I have to have all your makeup paragraphs so that you can get your course certificate. The second thing is, this is also requirements for successful completion. That is your end of class presentation for 1 case study of a holistic patient, which includes the following 4: your holistic assessment. You can mention your RN patient advocacy agreement. You don't have to. The things that you have to have in place are that 2-page thing that I gave you all last week, which is the SOAP fan capes assessment. And you can also have your geriatric assessment, which you can also have your geriatric assessment. And that just shares, that has everything in it. I'm also going to share with you next week or 2 weeks, a 1-page invoice that you all can copy and use. And so when you do your presentation, it's only going to be 20 minutes, but we're going to be prepared to just say it's 30 minutes. So you can bill for a half hour using your own selected hourly rate. So if you charge $150 for an hour, you're going to bill $75 for your 20 minutes. Does that make sense? Okay. So just to review that this whole course has been approved for contact hours through AHNA, otherwise known as the American Holistic Nurse Association. And then just to review, these are the 4 things in order to pass the class. So when you do your presentation, you also have to describe 1 local, state, or national resource you utilize to improve your patient care. So for example, let's say they had an A1C of 14 and you used mayoclinic.org to validate that normals are less than 5.6. Does that make sense? You can pick any source you want in this world, but just cite something. Does that make sense? The second thing is, you're going to identify 1 strategy in integrating holistic practices, principles with the selected patient care study. So for you, that could be a holistic process or practice you're using on them, or 1 holistic practice or principle the patient is using. So for example, suppose you're going to just say, I had an intuition a clairvoyant intuition that this patient was not telling me the truth or had more going on than I thought they did. That's an example of a holistic practice. Or you might say, I thought that this patient could benefit from journaling because they've been so upset about the loss of a husband. So you could say, I recommended this holistic practice. Does that make sense? Number 3, you're going to identify one patient intervention demonstrating their practice of utilizing and documenting a patient advocacy assessment. So for example, when you look at the 2-page handout, remember it uses a SOAP format. So that's subjective, objective, assessment, plan. And in your assessment, you'll use the FANCAPES acronym. In your assessment, you could also refer to the geriatric assessment. And also in your assessment, you could refer to the holistic assessment. So what is one finding for your patient when you do that presentation? And then lastly, you're going to identify one business strategy that you have learned in this course. And that's it. So those are the 4 things that I'll be looking for when you do your presentation. And I want this to be simple and not stressful. And if you forget something, I might say, hey, Matthew, what's one thing you learned in this course for your business? So if you forget something, I'll help you. Okay. So again, this is the criteria for successful completion of this course. I had to include all of this as required by the American Holistic Nurse Association. So the 2 slides I had before are included down here. And then AHNA turned around and approved my course for 42 hours on May 8th. And it expires on 2025. So I have to go through this process, this grueling anal retentive process every 2 years, just saying. Okay. So now we're going to do, I'd probably say we might only have time for 2 case studies, but so these are real live case studies, and I'm going to let you all, I think I'm going to let you all divide into 2 groups of 4. And then you guys can kind of strategize about how you would treat these. So the first one is, we're going to just do these one at a time. First one's about an 82-year-old chronic diabetic with decreased renal function in the hospital after removal of a second gangrenous toe on her right foot. And she called me at 10:10 p.m. So she's calling you at 10:10 p.m. with no nursing staff seeing her since the arrival on the floor at 8 p.m. post-op from PACU. So she arrived on the floor at 8 p.m. She's a fresh post-op after having her toe resected. Nobody's been in to see her, and it's 10:10 p.m. and she's calling you, and she's crying. Okay, that's number 1. We'll go through all 3 of these, and then we'll review. Second one is an 80-year-old female living in independent living with her husband. She lives in independent living. He lives in the skilled facility. She is very frustrated with the husband's care in the skilled facility. And she's telling me as her patient advocate that I want something done about these horrible people. So I offered to do a patient care conference to get the director of nursing, the primary care physician, and the case manager of the facility, and took 3 hours to arrange this. Okay. So my response to you is there anything else you would do for her? And then lastly, the third one is a 54-year-old male admitted to hospital with right-sided stroke, dysphagia, and acute MI. He's paralyzed on the right side. He's already had a 2-week stay, and the hospital wants him transferred immediately to a skilled facility with a 1-star rating. They've had no other time to look anywhere else except to send an email, and the only emails they got was for a 1-star rating. He's had no swallow studies since the day of admission, and the partner wants help as hospital wants him discharged ASAP. So I think I'm just going to do the first one first. So let's work on the 2-year-old chronic diabetic with decreasing renal function, and she's calling you at 10:10 p.m. with no one who's helped her. And she's just back from PACU at 8 p.m. Does that make sense before we break you up? Any questions about that? Okay, I'm going to stop sharing. And then Mark, I guess, does it feel best to you if you do this in 2 groups of 4? Does that sound good, or you want them smaller groups? We'll just leave it at 4 and 4, okay? And then I think we'll give you 10 minutes. I wonder if you need 10 minutes. That would bring you back at 7:47. What about 7:45? That means you get 8 minutes. I think with 4 of you in each group, there's lots of brain power in that group, in each group. I think you'll be done quicker. Do you think so? So we're going to give you 8 minutes, all right? So the time is right now 7:37. Okay, Mark, go ahead. I know you all are going to come back laughing because that's what you all do when you come back. Okay. 7:37. Okay, that's good. I'm giving them the example of Marguerite, and I'm going to ask them how they would handle what she said to me, which I'm going to say she's going to say that to them.
Mhm. They have about 15 seconds, and then
Okay.
they won't have any choice but to come back. And 2, 1, they should be coming back.
Here they come. Here they come. Here they come.
So I have a question, Karen, are we, when we read these narratives, these are cases that you've had, correct?
Correct.
And these are scenarios that you have found in actuality.
Correct. These are actual real life cases that are going to be very similar, as weird as they possibly can be for you. Okay, so group number 1, whoever that was, okay. The 2 L's and the 2 S's, that would be Lisa, and Sabrina and Sonia. Why don't you all go first?
Well, since I was real vocal, I'll go ahead and kind of give their thought process. This is a brand new patient to the floor. She hasn't been seen in 2 hours. Lots of things come to mind. She's diabetic, she's got renal failure. What are her lab work? What's her bandaging look like? Sonia was brought that back to me just a little bit. I'm thinking you're going to look as your patient when you assess them, but I didn't think to say assessment. So she's spot on for that. So when was a patient assessed? And when they went to surgery, did they get a block? So what's her pain level going to be?
I forgot to tell you her pain was a 10.
Okay.
Forgot to tell
In
you
that case, therein is your other issue. So
Mhm.
she's crying. She doesn't have family with her. It sounds like she's diabetic. She's in renal failure. She's scared. She's in pain. When's the last time she had anything to eat? What's her blood sugars now? So we're thinking you're going to call and see where the nurses is taking care of the patient, and we're going to call the charge nurse, and then we're going to call the nurse supervisor. And if none of those pan out to us, we're going to make doctor's phone calls and or call a rapid on the patient in the room just to get somebody there.
Totally awesome. Team.
Well, I had a great team.
They had fabulous brains. So I'm sure the other team did, but that was awesome. Very good. Yeah. And so that's what happened. I actually hung up and said, let me call the nursing station. And I did. And I said, this patient's been without any care for two hours. Her pain score is 10 and nobody's been there. And the nurse said, I've been here for 20 minutes. The phone hadn't rang. I said, you have not, she's been saying she's been calling you for 2 hours. So then she said, I'm going to get up in there and go, and I'm going to call you back. And she did. And she did all those things that you guys said. And she looked at her wound. She had, her blood sugar was like 300 and something. And she had orders for insulin. She was really hungry, but they didn't have any snacks on the floor, nothing. And then she had the audacity, the nurse said, you're diabetic, so I can't give you a snack. But anyway, at least she did an assessment and she gave her some pain medicine and she was much more relaxed 30 minutes later. Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
the only other thing that we thought about was what kind of fluid is she getting, and is she getting hydrated?
She was not on any IVs when she came up from PACU.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Very good, you guys. Okay. Okay. Group 2, Jennifer, Matthew, Luann, and Liz. 2 L's, a J, and an M.
Well, we pretty much, talked about getting somebody in there to do an assessment, whether it's, getting a PCT in there to check vitals while we tap into the computer and see what's been going on. I mentioned that at my facility, I know that we don't deliver a patient until we've gotten a report, or we've given a report to them. And the minute we get up there, we hook up the bed and hit the call light so that they know that we're actually present in the room. The fact that she has decreased renal function might make me think about, if they're trying to hydrate her or just status quo, but also knowing that, she was a 10 out of 10 for pain control, really, kind of sets her back, because when it's a 10 out of 10, it's hard to get on top of it. So but yeah, comfort care, if there's a possibility of getting her to a room closer to the nurse's station if she needs more independent care, or find out what kind of resources she has, if family members are going to be there, or if she has any sundowners going on too, or whatever, post anesthesia blues. So
Awesome. Very good, groups. You all did awesome. Okay, any questions before we go to case number 2? And
I had one question about,
yeah.
first thing that came to mind is, how is she going to find me? So how does this lady know to pick up the phone? And when she called you, was she someone you'd worked with before? Okay.
Yeah. She found me on the internet, and she found me about 3 months before she had her surgery.
Okay.
So yeah, that's how that worked.
And I'm also understanding, so we're on the outside. We don't have access to computers. We don't have access to their records. We don't have access to anything. We're just coming in cold, and we've got to troubleshoot for the worst case scenario right out of the gate, because we are not connected to this system.
Correct.
Thank you.
Yeah, you got it.
I had a question.
Yes, Lisa.
Like, if you can't, have you had issues where you can't get through and then you have to go in, or can you pretty much handle everything on the phone?
So I was about to go up the chain. So I was going to call the charge nurse, then I was going to call the supervisor, like you said, then I was going to call the hospital administrator on call until I got someone. But I was lucky because I got someone sitting at the desk. So, but they also, I forgot to tell you, at this hospital, they did away with all unit secretaries. So it's really chaos, and it's pretty short staffed. So all the nurses are always in the room, so nobody answers the telephone. So that's what I was going to do.
Yeah, I was sharing with my group that a lot of times there's not charge nurses anymore. It's kind of hit or miss. Yeah, so and just like you said too, all the nurses will be working, so that the nurses station is like a ghost town.
Correct.
So, yeah. So I'm just
Nurses
curious.
station's like a ghost town.
So
Yeah.
this is interesting to me, Karen, because at least in California, you cannot leave the patient bedside until a registered nurse takes care. You cannot leave. You cannot be giving a report to anyone else. It doesn't matter whether a nurse's aide comes in there. The receiving nurse must be bedside and be a part of the whole transfer scene, or you cannot leave the bedside. So that's kind of a bizarre case scenario, at least in this state. That would be grounds for firing.
Yeah, well, I'll remind me to tell you the story later, because I had to go to a press conference and I cited California law and cited Massachusetts law about mandatory nurse-patient ratios and all that kind of stuff.
Right.
And we don't have anything like that here in North Carolina.
Right. So that's it's hard for me to it's like all right.
Yeah, I hear you.
Doesn't California still have a unionized nursing system?
Well, I mean, it's international now. What used to be California Nurses Association then went throughout the US, and now it's international. I don't believe the unions are truly helping the nursing issues. I think it's political. But I do think that there are bodies still within hospital systems that do care about what they're doing. And surgery departments don't want to hear that their patients were left unattended. That's just,
Yeah.
they have a lot of power.
I think my concern is with the unionization in nursing, they're only allowed to take a certain number of patients. Here in Virginia, I have had as many as 8 patients myself.
Oh my goodness.
On a critical care floor. So it's unconscionable because you can't take care of those people appropriately.
Well, in California, there's short staffing, so people don't show up, and you end up, and there are mechanisms to engage that. It's usually effective, but in any event.
Well, maybe we should have a discussion about staffing and models and how it goes across the country, but I'm going to put that on hold for maybe next time we meet. But I want to get to this one other case. And so I'm going to share my screen and I'm going to show you the last case. Okay, it's going to be this one. 80-year-old female living in independent living with husband who is also in a skilled facility in the same continuing care retirement community. She was very frustrated. She hired me before this event happened 6 months ago. Very frustrated with the husband's care and skilled facility. She thought he was being abandoned. So she said, I want you to fix this. And I said, I'm not sure I can fix it, but let me try this. So I offered to convene a patient care conference to discuss his care. And I asked for the director of nursing, the primary care physician, and the case manager of the facility. Took me about 3 hours to arrange this. So at that time I was charging $100 an hour. So it was going to be $300 an hour that I was going to charge her. And so on the appropriate day, this was during COVID. So she and I sat together during the presentation in a Zoom in her apartment. And then in the facility, they were all sitting together and they did a fabulous job. They were thorough. They went through her plan of care. They went through all of the plan of care for the husband, all of his diagnoses, all of his medications, all of his intake, his output, his lab. And the physician spoke and said, this is what we're seeing. We feel like he's nearing the end of life, and we're paying attention to his pain medicine. This is how much he's gotten. This has been his response. His pain score is now around 3, and he's alert and oriented, and gave a fabulous report, not only from the physician point of view, the case manager and the director of nursing also went through all the notes and said, we've really tried to turn this around in the last 24 hours. So I thanked them. I thanked each of them for their time, because I could tell they had put a lot of time into this, and they knew they were had been called on the carpet. Not that I was calling them on the carpet, but just to ask them to respond to this complaint. So after it was over, I said thank you to each of them. And then I said, oh, I was on the phone with the wife on Zoom. And so after it was over, we hung up, and then she called me and was so pissed off that I had the audacity to thank them that they did a good job and that I had hired her, and I was supposed to be responsive to her and not just to them. And she was a psychologist, and she understood what this meant, and she thought I did terrible. And she was just letting me know I did terrible. Okay, so now you get to break into groups to determine what your response to her is going to be. Okay, does that make sense?
Do you want the same groups team, or do you want me to ask it to be recreated?
You all want the same groups or different? Why don't you just do it the same, and that way it's easy, Mark? Is that the easiest for you?
Sounds good. Either
Okay.
way is possible. So we're at 7:59.
Yep.
Another 8 minutes, Karen, or
I'd say let's give them 6 minutes. This one's probably going to be quick. I'd say quick.
okay, we'll see you back at 8:05. I'm opening the rooms.
Thank you.
Yeah, I pulled up the gnanow.org. The website is pretty impressive.
He's done a lot of work on that website. It was
Mhm.
pretty feeble originally. It was pretty thin, but it's becoming more and more powerful. It's great.
I was in a meeting with Corey Search yesterday too.
Where are you? Is she doing all right?
Yeah, she's doing fine. It was a Land of Sky diversity meeting, so she's got a fire. It's always good to hear.
She is for sure. Okie dokie. All right, so let's let the second group go this time, and that was Jennifer, Matthew, Luann, and Liz. You get to go first this time. What did you all figure out?
I thought Jennifer had the first step is good to evaluate what was her perception and expectation during this period of time in the skilled facility, so we can get a sense of where the guy started and where obviously and even to note, did this woman notice that he was fading? Did she have a realistic appreciation that he was taking a turn for the worst? And then my thought is, if we could see that she wasn't picking up on that, then some real compassionate reorientation to, what actually is happening physiologically and what we can and can't do. And certainly, yeah. And to praise the things and to say, good things about what was done right and what they have been trying to do. And yeah, and then see where, but I'm hearing grief. I'm hearing grief channeled in anger towards you because he's fading.
Correct. Okay. That's good, group number one. What about group number two?
Well,
We felt like that maybe she was deflecting.
Mhm.
And then, there was a lot of concern about the deflection, what did she discuss with you was the main points? And were those points met during the meeting? Did she have an opportunity to ask questions that may have been in addition to that? And then we also thought that maybe if we talked to her about those questions, so we talked about the things that we wanted, the things that we needed to know, but we want to keep a positive attitude. We definitely don't want any negativity making things worse for anybody. At least to Nowicki, you had some additional thoughts on that.
oh,
right?
well, I did just want to ask, so I do have to just say, what do you do about those 3 hours? Like, does she just leave and not pay? Or, I mean, how do you broach that? She's unsatisfied, but yet you spent the 3 hours and you've worked, and wasn't that the agreement initially when she came to you that she would pay you? So how do you do that, Karen?
Well, I
Yeah.
just want to get all of your feedback before I tell you what happened.
Okay.
So did I get your feedback satisfactorily from all of you all?
Yeah, the only other thing that, we thought about was at that point in time, do you say to her, I realize that you're unsatisfied if you don't believe that I performed for you what you needed for me to do, perhaps I can defer you or refer you to another person. So that was the only other thing.
Those were all wise comments you all had. So what happened is she called me up and she said, how dare you say nice things to those people? How dare you say thank you to the physician who has totally denied and ignored my husband? How dare you thank the director of nursing when she has incompetent staff? And how dare you say nice things to the case manager? So you're fired and I never want to hear from you again. And I said, ma'am, I'm sorry, this has not worked out. I believe you still owe me $300. And she said, I'm not giving that to you either. And she hung up on me. So that's what happened. So then I had angst about what I should do, and should I put her in, collections for not paying me or anything. And I actually called the skill facility back and said, you all really did a great job. And it turns out she'd been pretty evil to several people all along. And she had fired one of the physicians 2 or 3 times in the facility that had taken care of her husband. So I just decided I've never put anyone in collections, and this has been the only person that's fired me in 8 years. And so I don't know if you all remember, I said this to her when I first met her. She said it to me. She goes, I'm getting the impression that you might be too kind for me. And I said, well, I am a soft-spoken person, but I'm assertive, and you can get someone else if you want to. But that was one of those danger signs that I didn't pay attention to. And maybe I should have followed through on that. My lesson learned is when someone says that to you on the front end, you should probably say, well, let's talk about this. Maybe this isn't a good fit. So it turned out it wasn't a good fit. So I just wanted to say, when your intuition speaks to you, it's good to listen. So that, and actually, Mark told me that he had seen her within the last year, and she asked how I was doing, and Mark said she's fine, but we don't know how she's doing. So there you go. All right, well, you've welcomed another episode of the RN Patient Advocacy Trials and Tribulations, and we're going to take a break. And can you come back in about 4 minutes or 5 minutes. And if you have to, do what you have to do and just come back when you can, because Brad will be here. Okay? All right. Thank you, guys. We're gonna we'll wait 1 more minute and then we'll start. Okay? Is it boiling in Chicago?
Haven't been out in a while. Not gonna lie. But
That's a-
I mean, generally, we had a really bad last week, but you know, this in terms of like how the rest of the country is getting, not you, right? You're doing pretty good, aren't you?
Well, we're in the mid 80s, which we think is pretty hot.
Yeah. I hear you, but yeah, I mean, it's just getting bad everywhere.
Yes, it is. All righty. So I'm going to welcome everybody back. And before we start, we're going to do our introductions for ourselves. So if you will introduce you as a student and what's your name, what state are you from, and why are you taking this course, okay? So I'll start out with Luann. I'm going to go through all my squares until I get you done. So, okay, Luann, hit it.
Hi, my name is Luann, as Karen just said, and I am in the state of California, but I do go to Wyoming. And I am retired from critical care nursing in the hospital, many different departments, and I would like to have a wholeness, basically a wellness focus, and help people, empower them, educate them, give them tools to help navigate whatever their goals are.
Thank you, Luann. And Matthew, what about you?
So my name's Matthew. I'm a nurse practitioner in New Mexico. I work in a holistic practice as their Western medicine person, and developing this, as a piece of what I do. When I was a nurse, I was a psychiatric nurse for the VA, and then I was a medical provider for the men's prisons in Santa Fe and different parts of New Mexico. And the reason I'm taking it is I just felt that like there was a little hole in my education to really go to that next layer of depth for taking care of people. So here I am.
Thank you, Matthew. Sabrina, what about you?
Hi, I'm Sabrina. I live in North Central Arkansas, and I am currently a nurse working in utilization management. I am trying to take this class to own my own business to fill in gaps in my community. It's a small community and we are lacking in some resources. And so I want to be one of the people that helps tie that in and make sure that our mainly elderly community gets the care that they need.
Thanks, Sabrina. Okay, Jennifer, what about you?
I'm Jennifer, and I am in Virginia, Chesterfield County to be specific. I'm taking this class because I think there's a huge need to correct some of the things that are going on, and I don't feel as though I can do it while I'm in the hospital, so I want to be able to help patients on the outside and bridge the gap between their healthcare and their knowledge of their healthcare.
Thank you, Jennifer. And Lisa Seeds.
Hi, I'm Lisa. I'm from Virginia, all over the state. I'm basically taking this for lots of reasons. The main ones are to better connect my patients and my staff together for a more cohesive understanding of what's going on with them.
Thank you, Lisa. Lisa Nowicki.
Hi, I'm from Orlando, Florida. I've been a nurse for 21 years and currently work in the hospital and just feel like people need so much more help than what we can offer them at the hospital. So would like to start a little side practice doing just that, helping people try to figure out their health care, because it's not very apparent when they're in the hospital. There's a lot of questions they have. So yeah.
Thank you, Lisa. Sonia.
Hi, good evening. My name is Sonia and I'm from Oklahoma. I am Chickasaw and Choctaw. And what I want to do with our clinic, which I work for the Indian Health Services as well, is to create a more holistic spiritual clinic and just try to figure out how we can incorporate more culture into our healthcare system. We serve a lot of indigenous population, and that's where we want to focus.
Awesome. Thank you. And Liz Dinsley.
That's me. I am from Colorado, currently in New Hampshire, and people need help navigating healthcare. And for those of us that have worked in it for years, crossing my fingers, it's easy. So, and patients that I work with now, they're just like, wow, you're a superhero. You worked magic for me. And that's great. So yeah, I'd like to work that magic for some other people. And be a little bit more out of the corporate setting. Trying to control what care looks like and all that. So
Thank you, Liz. Thank you. So I'm going to share my screen and I'm going to tell you a little bit about Brad. And here he is. So before I go into detail, I met Brad at a National Nurses in Business course, their annual meeting, and I think it was August or September, about 3 years ago, Brad. Wasn't it 3 years ago? I think so.
Yes.
Yes. And so Brad was an unbelievable speaker, and he has one of the most compelling stories I've ever heard about a medical malpractice issue. And he's been an amazing person to watch in his recovery and how he's turned his life into patient advocacy. So he is a I think you were a prosecuting attorney, right, Brad?
For about 17 or so years, I was defending insurance companies.
Lord have mercy.
Yeah.
And so he's formed this fabulous website called Greater National Advocates, which he'll tell you about. It's a nonprofit. The acronym is gnanow.org, which he'll tell you about. And he is all over the United States doing all kinds of fabulous work. And his story is really, really compelling. So I'm not going to steal too much fire from him, but I'm just going to say we are lucky to have him talk tonight. Okay, I'm giving it back to you to drive, Brad.
All right. Well, I have to, before I do anything, you know what? I do this not just for you, Karen, and your crew, but what I'm going to say is it gives me great exposure to different organizations, different learning environments, different instructors, and different groups of students. And I just have to tell you, and everybody here, that after hearing your introductions as to where you are and why you're here, I can't explain the warm feeling that I have going through my entire body right now, because you are my audience. You are doing this for the right reasons, and you are in spectacular hands when it comes to learning what it takes to actually jump in and get things done and help people and make it your passion, make it your life mission, make it a business. So I just needed to say that from the outset, that I look forward to these. And in particular, this group, the answers that you gave in your geographical spread, I mean, I can't tell you how much you're needed and how much you will be able to make it, because people are screaming for the help that you are all dying to provide. So I wanted to say that and recognize it. And I don't always do that. In fact, I rarely do. This is a good crew. So I am a lawyer. I've been a lawyer since 1991. Took the first job I could out of law school, which happened to be, I didn't even know what it was at the time, but all I know is I got thrown into court on my second day on the job after, somebody had me watch something, my boss, and said, "You think you could do that?" And I'm like, "Oh, I guess." So he goes, "Okay, here's your file. Go do it." So it's kind of like thrown into that fire. And I ended up doing starting my own law practice about 5 years or 6 years later. And we started defending people who were filing lawsuits. Most of the time they were claiming that they were hurt, and my clients were coming from insurance companies. So I was not like really a personal injury or a medical malpractice attorney at the time. What I was is the guy that was on the other side. And I only really tell this story because it gives a little bit of background in terms of, the kind of care that I thought I would receive in the hospital and what ended up happening. So I knew, medical lingo, medical jargon more than the average bear. I had been examining and picking apart medical records for 15 years. I knew the way offices and hospitals operated. I knew the system. I started off, everything was still on paper, and I became just like a lot of you guys, you could just tell a lot from that scribble that you can't tell anymore from looking at the screen. You could still tell, but you could tell like when somebody's in a hurry or when somebody's nervous or somebody is, just by the way that it's written in that good old fashioned handwriting. But I got used to, how the hospital system and how the healthcare system worked. And 15 years or so into my practice, I felt like I wasn't feeling too well. And it was a Mother's Day weekend holiday, and it's important because doctors and nurses are people too, and they love to spend time with their families and take off for Mother's Day. And especially there's always going to be somebody that's willing to, pick up the extra hours and staffing or whatnot. But the bottom line is that I was not feeling good on Mother's Day. And that's kind of important because Mother's Day is a day that I am supposed to be, and I fully intended on honoring and, respecting my mother and my wife and yada, yada, yada. So if I'm not feeling good laying on the couch on Mother's Day complaining, that ain't good and something ain't right. So I had a headache that was just getting worse and worse and worse. And it was like nothing I'd really experienced before. It was really hard for me to put it into words. I started feeling lethargic. It went from, get up off your butt, it's Mother's Day, to, do you think we should call an ambulance? And the response was, my wife's mom was a RN at the time. My wife called her up and, she took my pulse, I think. And she said, "You know what, be safe. Just call an ambulance." So Mother's Day, Sunday, about 4 o'clock in the afternoon, I present to the emergency room as a 37-year-old, otherwise healthy male with a chief complaint of a headache that's getting progressively worse. And the chart notes have indications that this was new to him. This is not normal. Labs were ordered. CBC, everything. They came back, but they weren't really seen. It's crazy because this particular hospital was transitioning to I don't know if it was a new or probably their first EMR system. So not everybody that was working that day was familiar how labs were, you know, sent back down and so forth. And they didn't get acted on, and they showed clear warning signs that I was, well, I guess you guys can probably guess, you know, I was experiencing the signs of sepsis. But as you all know, there's an underlying bacteria or something that was causing the sepsis. I didn't burst a kidney or anything. I wasn't bleeding internally. But I had that headache. And those alarm bells should have started going off when the head pain turned into neck pain and more lethargic, and, you know, all of the just the changes in mental status. But the bottom line is, over the course of 8 hours and, you know, uncoordinated shift changes, missed labs, it's like the holy trinity. I always say that everybody was on the same page in terms of making sure that everything that should have been done for me wasn't done for me. It was a group effort, and it always is a group effort. I mean, our system is designed to have some semblance of checks and balances, but if the system isn't followed, things fall through the cracks. And I don't know if you know about that Swiss cheese model, right? Karen's nodding. I mean, Swiss cheese, it's, you know, cheese, it's got holes in it. If you line up the Swiss cheese perfectly so that, you know, the whole, you can go right through it. That's what happens. It creates this way for a horrible cascade of events to occur and just carry on. The buck gets passed. So I'm sorry.
No, I'm just sighing when I
Okay.
hear your story.
So
It's-
here I was,
Mm.
you know, a lawyer who could speak, knew lingo, knew the system, at least I thought I did. But when it's you just freeze up, you know, you can't advocate, you know, for yourself when you're the patient. You have so many things going against you. Number one, you're not feeling good. Number two, you're nervous. Number three, if you're in the ER, you're stripped down and you're wearing a gown and you're at this position where you're looking up at everybody. So you have this complete loss of power. You combine all of those things, and I don't care who you are, and I hear the stories all the time. The CEO of the hospital can be in the ER and he's going to freeze, and nobody gives a damn who he is once he's in that gown. So, you know, time passes, hours pass, and, you know, eventually I crashed. You know, got up to about 105.5, 106. That's when everybody finally started to take notice. All the bells and alarms were going off, and the last thing I remember is about 7 or 8, you know, doctors and nurses hovering over me, like calling out frantic orders, looking nervous and everything. And I remember screaming, and then I was just put under and intubated, and I woke up a month later, and I had all 4 of my limbs amputated, and I went blind in my right eye. And that's, you know, from a medical standpoint, you know, I had a stroke while I was in the coma, and like a millimeter further in, it wouldn't have just been my eye. I would have had brain damage. So I'm real lucky in that regard. I go back to work. Well, it turns out I had bacterial meningitis, guys. You know, it was too late for them to do the definitive spinal tap to, you know, because my platelet count was so low, they were convinced I wouldn't clot, I would bleed out. You know, the funny thing is looking back, they never even, you know, nobody, it's like you go to the doctor for your physical and they ask you to open your mouth and say, I don't know if that's common practice in the ER, but nobody took a throat swab or anything of me either, which would have clearly shown that the bacteria, that's where it lives, and it had broken through the blood barrier. And I became septic, and I have meningococcal disease, septicemia. DIC, multi-system organ failure, the works. So, you know, I get intubated, sedated, vasopressors, fluid resuscitation, dialysis, you know, the whole 9 yards. So I literally am lucky to be alive. The chances were not looking good. I blew up to over 300 pounds. My organs weren't functioning. And thank God I don't remember any of it. But anywho, I get out, go to rehab. You know, the beauty of my law practice at the time is that it was my own firm. I had a partner, you know, I was able to go back at my own pace, went back to court, tried a few cases as a guy with no hands and no legs just to see how it would go. It went well. But you know, and my case was egregious, by the way. You know, there was no question that I had clear signs of sepsis. And, you know, yeah, it was like, you know, 20 years ago, but, you know, they still had sepsis protocols back then. You know, it's like, check, check, check. Okay, give them broad spectrum antibiotics, figure out what the hell's going on here. I got none of that. So I decide that based on my knowledge of how hospitals and the whole health system works, my ability to actually try a case, and combine that with the ordeal that I just went through, it just seemed to me that going into the world of medical malpractice would just be the natural thing. I'll be able to attract the clients. I had the skills to do it. I have support, like I was saying before we got started. You know, when you're a lawyer, it's crazy because I was on the defense side and you'd think that you'd be friends with all the defense attorneys. Not so much, because you don't really even get to know somebody until you're going against them and fighting them. So I found out that the best friends that I had out there were these highly skilled, you know, plaintiffs attorneys who were, you know, prosecuting medical malpractice cases and stuff like that. And that's where you get to really, you know, test people in the courtroom and see what they're made of. So I started to feel out, you know, the possibilities. And once I knew that I had support and that I could do it, I started doing medical malpractice work right here in Chicago. And, you know, got a few cases and partnered up with some great lawyers. I still do that today on a national level. But as any medical malpractice attorney will tell you, everybody thinks they have a med mal case, but they're very difficult to prove. And they're expensive and they go on forever. And, you know, I'd been through it, so I know it. But the one thing that I didn't know is that when people have a medical problem that doesn't have anything to do with malpractice, they don't know who else to call other than the lawyer. So I witnessed firsthand that the people, for the most part, who were calling me didn't have any medical malpractice case at all. They wanted to sue their doctor for not following up or not being able to get into the doctor at time when they're fighting with their insurance companies for, you know, trying to get a second opinion, or they're being denied this or that or the other thing. So they're calling me because who else are you going to call? Call a lawyer? This is malpractice. They're treating me bad in the medical arena. So that kind of opened my eyes to the fact that there's got to be a better way. I told you I had gone through this medical malpractice ordeal of myself. It's settled. I recovered. Nobody gets rich or anything, but it gave me a little bit of breathing room and an opportunity to explore for a little bit and see what else was out there, because lawyers are great at, you know, fixing things after the shit hits the fan, getting their names in the paper and making a lot of money. But they're not really good at preventing bad things from happening in the first place. In fact, it goes counter to everything that anybody that is getting a third of the recovery is going to want to do. You want the problems, and that's just, they're going to happen anyway. You don't have to ignore them and, like, you know, pretend like they're not going to happen. But anyway, that's how I found, you know, people like Karen. looking around, trying to find out, you know, what all my other medical malpractice friends were doing when these people were calling with these medical malpractice cases that were not medical malpractice cases. And they're like, I don't know. They shrug their shoulders. Most of the time it never gets to a lawyer because they get screened by staff. So there's definitely a market there for people who are looking for somebody for help, because they're not getting out of the system what they're entitled to. So I started exploring and I found out about patient advocacy or patient navigation or healthcare navigation or nurse navigators or, you know, you name it, 15 different names for pretty much people doing the same dedicated work all over the country. I started taking an interest. I started going and meeting people, attending, you know, what were at the time real small gatherings. They were more like, you know, meetups than they were conferences, but there were dedicated people that were doing the same exact work that you guys all want to do. They're pioneers, and I became fascinated. I got involved. I joined the boards of directors for the organizations that were kind of running the show. And, you know, I was trying to find a way what my place could be, where I fit in here. And I decided that I could use my skills, my story, my experience, my connections, and one of my best friends from high school who had been working for, you know, cream of the crop advertising, marketing, public relations agencies and corporations across the country, rolling out new products, introducing new concepts to an audience that didn't know about it. So he was with me, you know, throughout my whole ordeal, the coma and afterwards and everything. Like I said, we're childhood friends. He'd been through stuff with his own family and his own care. And he said, you know what, we could do this. We can actually do this. Let's get all these people under one roof. Let's form something here and make them available. So really, that's how it started, probably around 2015 or so, with like local regional things. We started off as Greater Chicago Advocates, where we just listed, you know, the 20 or so people in the Greater Chicagoland area that were doing it. I told you there were pockets, you know, Seattle was a forward-thinking place that, you know, had some of this going on, Massachusetts, Florida, Arizona. So where you'd find elderly people, you were also finding advocates. So I viewed my role as starting an organization, and it just sounds cliche and everything, but bottom line is this, it's true. I wanted to make sure that what happened to me didn't happen to somebody else, you know, and there are people like you that can, I became just so convinced, and this is not the case in every scenario, but in my case, because, you know, when it comes to sepsis, we all know timing is everything, you know, it's all about time. So in my case, I know because of when I got there and when I crashed and looking back and looking at the labs and looking at the progression, that if I would have had an advocate there, 1 hour, 2 hours, 3 hours, 4 hours, 5 hours, 6 hours, maybe even 7, as soon as I would have gotten that Rocephin, it would have stopped the progression of the disease and started to reverse it. And I never had that chance. So I became absolutely convinced that advocacy could have made a difference. And that's what got me behind it 100%. I have an organization now, and every single one of you absolutely needs to write this down. It is so important. It's important to you. It's important to me. It's important to my organization, and it's important to all the people out there who can help you. And the beauty is that I know you're getting trained still, but make no mistake, every single one of you is ready, because I tagged in along and I saw that you guys were talking about case studies and, you know, sharing ideas and stuff. And you already have a community here, and you already know what your strengths are and what you're not good at. That is a good 70% of it is being able to identify how you're going to be able to best serve the patients and their families, and knowing where you can make an impact and where you need to get this to somebody else, and creates a cycle. The organization is called Greater National Advocates. The URL website is GNANOW.org. We're the largest, most visible independent patient advocacy directory that there is. We support everybody. The mission is to, and it's all, we take all this stuff into consideration, that, you know, you're in a course right now that isn't free, and, you know, you're giving up careers to do this, or at least to give it a whirl. Greater National Advocates was founded on the principle that we're not going to make you pay any fee whatsoever to make your services known to the public. So it's a free directory listing that allows you to get immediate exposure and immediate business, and, you know, start practicing on your own terms whenever you want to. Greater National Advocates is, like I said, it's a directory, and it is a promotional tool for the profession. So we've got all sorts of, call them like, you know, fishing lines out there with bait on them and everything, because the one thing that we learned is that people still are not always searching for independent patient advocates. For example, a lot of them are still searching for the med mal lawyers. But if you can find out what it is that they're looking for, and then steer them to a place like Greater National Advocates, that's what we're very good at doing. And we have just about 600 of you folks all over the country, based on your geographic locations. If I remember, like, there's a Utah, there's a Colorado, there's a New Hampshire, and maybe an Oregon. I wasn't writing anything down, but the bottom line is, the more that we are able to spread the word and wake up the nation about the life-saving benefits of this profession, the more demand we create. And in those areas that I spoke of, the demand is significant. Okay, you're not going to have really too much trouble finding an independent patient advocate in Phoenix, Scottsdale, Miami, Fort Lauderdale, Boston, Seattle. But you go to these less populated areas of the country, it's where we're needed the most. So I love the geographical, you know, variety. What did I say?
We're laughing at Sabrina because she's doing this action because she's in Arkansas in a
Yeah,
very remote
yeah.
area.
Yes, and it's like, you know, just like everything, you know, COVID allowed us and woke us up to the fact that, you know, if you got 600 in the country, you got 350 million people. Not everybody's going to be close by. So depending on how specialized you are, in your ability to, you know, communicate and do things over the phone and by Zoom the way we're doing it now, I mean, you can have a national practice, national presence, and with a local touch, you could do it however you want it. So I don't know if I open it up for questions right now. I don't know if I left anything out, but I'm just so happy to, you know, see these, you know, fresh faces and just welcome you with open arms, knowing that you're ready, that you're equipped, and that we need you. So, I mean, I didn't come here to sell or anything, but after just hearing all this, I mean, what am I going to do? I mean, I'm telling you, the demand is there. I'm on a mission right now to make sure we get as many advocates as possible, because I don't want to screw this whole thing up by, you know, telling everybody that there's an advocate available for them if we can't meet the need. So we've, you know, Greater National Advocates started by promoting the concept to the general public, but we've moved now because we had to turn off that faucet, you know, because it was starting to, you know, too much was coming out. So we're on a mission right now to recruit. So, I mean, and I don't know, I'm just so happy to hear how engaged and excited you guys sound, hopefully as much as I am. So if anybody has any questions.
Brad, will you tell them how they're going to apply to get on your website? What's
Yeah, you
the,
go to the website, and in the upper right-hand corner, it says professionals join here. Go through the steps. Take your time. I will give you a couple of tips about what our analytics show in terms of who gets the most calls. Believe it or not, the highest pixels of a headshot, in other words, the better, clearer the headshot is tied with the a field that says how I can help. That's not the play. If you're going to fill out applications and everything, I sure hope you all do. I'm going to give you a tip that when you have that how you can help field, get to the point. You have plenty of time to tell your story and why you're doing this. They don't need to know how you run your business and the how I can help. If you help people, connect them with, senior living, if you can do prescription reconciliation, if you are skilled at bringing medical teams together, whatever it is that you are adept at and skilled at, put that up front and center to make sure that you get the calls that you want. So, and it works. It works. The phones are ringing off the hook. So you're at the right place at the right time.
and do you have someone answering the phone just business hours or all the time?
All the time. All the time. I mean, we have like these landing pages all over the place. I alluded to them as like fishing hooks and everything. The call to action has been to call, and we have outside answering service that takes down the basics and immediately forwards it out to a group of people that will, reach out and, try and make the right connection. But we're also about to unveil a more, it just gets to be too much. I'm telling you, the calls just become overwhelming. So we are making like a virtual assistant search function that is going to make it a lot easier for people to go and get connected directly with the advocate as opposed to going through us trying to feel.
And Brad, Karen, I actually did a search on the special care aging advocates for Asheville, North Carolina. Karen, may I share this screen view? Because I think this is
Sure.
pretty interesting.
Sure.
And it reinforces what Brad is talking about. So at GNA.now, I actually went to and typed in the a search criteria, special care and aging, being Karen Services, Asheville, North Carolina. Those three fields return me to special care and aging advocates nearest to Asheville, North Carolina. And immediately I saw Piedmont, South Carolina. I'm like, wow, this gives you a reflection that Asheville is an aging community. And one of the top results is Piedmont, South Carolina. Pisgah Forest, North Carolina is more in the close proximity. Karen, I don't know if you know these individuals.
I
Annie
know every
Rich,
one of them. I do. I sure do.
nice. I kind of figured that. And you start to see some check marks about tele-advocacy available, offers free initial consultation, and then you see the ability to call, email, view profile. I think that's pretty powerful, Brad. You have
Click on
an
the
incredible
view.
service.
Thank you. But click on the view profile so I can see what the whole thing looks like. And that one field that I'm talking about. I just
Okay,
don't want to call all you guys and say, hey, beef up your profile a little bit. I want you to get more calls. I've learned.
All right, so I clicked on her profile.
Mm-hmm. There you go.
And
short, sweet, and to the point.
How can I help? Important information. Karen's formal education, incredible professional affiliations, why I became a professional healthcare advocate, the story that we constantly hear in our branding of our individuals, and then to contact Karen directly through this the form prompt. Very, very impressive. Again, as a resource for, somebody searching and needing care and services.
And it's also designed for advocates to be able to quickly find other advocates that they can partner up with.
I've used your website, so I get a lot of calls from all over the country, and they want to know, like, a patient advocate in off the coast of Washington State, that little island. So
Oh, Vancouver.
I looked at your website, and I found somebody not too far. So it's a very powerful tool. Great.
Cool.
Thank you. Thank you. Other questions for Brad? All of y'all need to get on there and get going. And of course, each of them need to have a website, right, Brad?
No, I mean, look, if you don't have one, it certainly helps, I guess, to if somebody's going to poke around and wants to, a lot of us do that, but at the same time, if somebody's looking for help and, you are holding yourself out and they're looking at it right in front of you, either on their computer or on their phone, how I can help. I don't think they care about a website, and neither do I, it's obviously good business practice, but at the same time, the point is that there should be no delay whatsoever. We don't want anybody to wait. Oh, I still have to do this. I still have to do that. I haven't done this yet. You can do this.
Awesome.
So,
other questions for Brad from you all?
I just have props for Brad. I mean, we all know this hit a little close to home for me since I was in the ICU 2 weeks ago, dying of sepsis. So, that's an intense realization that I had to be very assertive, and I had to be very firm in my situation. And I kept thinking, in my situation, I know what protocol needs to be happening that's not happening. And I know what medication I need that's not being given to me. And I kept thinking, how would this go if I didn't know those things? If I didn't know, all the things that I need, if I didn't think, okay, you guys are giving me a broad spectrum antibiotic, but it's been more than 48 hours and I know you should be checking the cultures, the things that I'm thinking in my head as a nurse. And my white blood cells going up on antibiotics instead of going down on antibiotics. I know we need to change the antibiotic, the things that you think about because you're used to it. I kept thinking, what if I wasn't me? What if I wasn't a nurse and I got a different perspective. And I'm not saying that I enjoyed being in ICU for as long as I did, but it taught me a lot about the patient advocacy and where there are gaps. And I kept thinking, okay, if I were not medical, this would be more challenging. I would very much go down the toilet. So I do feel like this hits a little close to home right now. But Brad, I also think you need to be given so many props because if I'm already bitter about my hospital acquired pneumonia. And I shouldn't be, considering everything that you had to go through and everything that you went through and came out stronger. And and really showed that you can have all these things happen and still come out and make it your mission to help people. And I'm sitting here still a little bit mad about my situation. So I give you so many props for that, because that strength and that resilience, which I don't like that word because people keep calling me resilient. It makes me want to punch them in the face, but like I'm
Well,
laughing.
are you an inspiration yet?
Not quite, but yeah, like every time they're like, "You're so strong," I'm like, right
I know.
there. Yeah. So I don't want to say those words to you, but know that the sentiment of the fact that, I can see from my end that you had those options, you had that fork in the road, and you chose to do something really positive with it, and you could have gone the other way. I just want to let you know that, like, I'm so impressed with that in a non-lame way that I wish I could communicate.
I want to give you a hug. I wish I could have, but I will tell you that knowing that it's working is just extremely gratifying. I'm telling you, I'm still feeling that fuzzy feeling that I told you all about it when we first started getting rolling here. I'm feeling it. So I know that we're all going to make an impact. People are starting to take notice. So
Well, thank you. Thank you for being here, and thank you for helping create the organization that you have. And thank you for choosing the fork in the road that you did. That's all I can say.
Any other questions or comments for Brad? So Brad, what we usually do at the end of every class, we do takeaways. So would you like to stay with us while we do takeaways?
how could I leave?
And the other thing, I want to reintroduce you to Mark Zarnecki. He is our fabulous IT dude, and he's been with me with you for 3 times also,
All
3
right, all
years.
right.
So this is great, Mark. Okay, so let's do takeaways. Okay, so Miss Luann, what are your takeaways for tonight?
Great class. Thank you so much for coming and sharing about this organization. It dawned on me as you were talking about the volume of calls that come in. Sometimes even just having a reassuring and educational conversation is a huge help to orient someone and give them a foundational direction. And
Yep.
and I have heard it said in this class, we don't have to have all the bells and whistles. We can just kind of step in, toe in the water. And you just said it yourself. So I appreciate that reaffirmation of,
Awesome.
don't have to have a website, just want to help. And anyway, thank you so much for your story.
All right.
Thank you, Luann. Okay, Miss Liz, what about you?
I'm feeling good feelings. I'm with Bree. I didn't have that experience in the hospital, but it's kind of mind-blowing. It just thanks for what you've done for us. Because being within healthcare and working in a broken system is its own special challenge.
Yep.
I appreciate the encouragement too, because I've checked out your website. I love it. It's beautiful. It's intuitive. And sure, I can get on there now and get going.
Yeah.
Just throw myself out there. Okay.
Right. Yeah. It starts off with, listening. And half of it is just thank you for listening, and it's a relationship building. It's good to get in there and do it. Like when I got thrown in, like I said earlier, similar. You think you could do this? Okay, get in there and do it. You're next.
I charted something today and I was like, provided support and listening. And I would go on to define that. And I was like, you know what? Listening is enough.
Mm-hmm.
It's huge.
Yep.
Thank you, Liz. Okay, Mark, what about you?
I'm more of the geeky kind of techie guy, and I'm super impressed how, in the 3 times you visited with us here, Brad, the website has evolved to make it easy for somebody needing the care or the services of these individuals, and drilling down under advocate specialty type problem or condition, credentials, language, faith experience, first name or last name, and then the drill down selection. Just exceptionally impressed with what you have evolved here.
Awesome, thank you. Shout out to my high school pal.
Okay, Matthew, what about you?
Well, I'm so grateful that for the technology to actually be here to hear this today. I'm floating around in a boat, and I knew it was an important class, and I really wanted to meet you, and it was absolutely worth being up from 2 to 4 in the morning. And I'm looking out the window now, and I'm gonna have sunrise pretty soon too. I think I'll
Nice.
stay up. But yeah, thank you. You'll be seeing me. I'll be contacting you too. I have a lot more
Awesome.
questions.
Yeah, and I want to make sure that you guys, know that you can, reach out. My email, it's lbradley@gnanow.org. No dots or anything, just lbradley@gnanow.org. You can
Okay.
find me. If you want to find me, you'll
Okay.
find me.
I will. Thank
All
you.
right.
All right. And Miss Sabrina, what about you?
I mean, I really enjoy this, even though a little triggering at the moment, but it was good. I think that it does it does show me that it's okay to be assertive for your patients. I have always been that way. And I have saved a couple lives in doing so, and I don't mean that in a cocky way. I just mean that in a real way, that sometimes you've got to stand up for what you know is right. And I feel like some patients, that's what they need, especially when you're feeling like absolute crap and you're in pain and you're weak, and sometimes you just really need that person to stand up. And I did like the case studies, Karen. That was helpful to brainstorm with people on what you would really do, especially if like someone's really mad at you. What do you do? I'm like, I don't know, punch them in the face. But it's good to have those and go through that. So I enjoyed this class. It was helpful. Thank you.
Great. And Miss Jennifer?
Likewise, I enjoyed the little case studies that we did, and our little breakout groups. Your story, Bradley, was incredibly inspiring and infuriating. It leads back to the moral injustice that we learned about. And I first heard that word through this class, and I see it every weekend when I work, and I feel like my hands are tied and my mouth is taped, because you just become known as the troublemaker, or
Yep.
the whistleblower, or whatever. A few months ago, a year ago, we got a patient transferred to our hospital.
Where are you again?
Richmond, Virginia, or Chesterfield.
Okay.
We're called the mothership. We have a bunch of little other facilities around us, and it was a 30-some-year-old or 28-some-year-old post-tonsillar bleed coming from another hospital. And they said he got clammy and passed out. So they gave him uncross-matched blood and sent him to us. And the guy must have been 6'4" and 350 pounds. He vagaled, and nobody checked a hemoglobin or a hematocrit on the man before giving him uncrossed blood. And I'm just, I that's all I can say. I'm sorry you went through what you did. so thankful for you as an advocate, and I would have had a lot of things to say. And that's the day I got fired.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing that, Jennifer. Okay, Lisa, what about you, honey?
I feel what Jennifer's saying. We all have seen so much injustice and trying so hard to try to talk to people and whatnot, and try to just get everybody back on board and understand that their patients are their patients and they need to take care of them. You know, doing scenarios in the beginning actually just brought to home that first case, and you know, and having been on the floor and still as a nursing supervisor at another facility. I mean, all this stuff just breaks my heart, because I know that we can do it. I just don't understand why we're not doing it. And I don't know how to fix it, and that bothers me, sir. And to hear that happened to you, and I go down to the ER down at, you know, one of the hospitals I work, and we always do sepsis checks on those patients, but when we don't, and that's what happened with you, when we don't. And I don't ever want to see that again. I don't ever want to see or hear that has happened. And again, it breaks my heart. I am very appreciative that you had the courage to tell us everything that went on. And I am very appreciative of the simple fact that you actually have gone that extra mile and tried to make this a better place for other people to be in. So thank you very much for your efforts.
Well, I mean, this is the truth, is that if it weren't for people like all of you who have come before you and who will come after you, there's no way in hell that I'd be here to be talking about anything like this. So yes, I have a portal and I'm promoting it, but you know what? You guys didn't know about me when you decided that this is what you want to do. So we're all on the same path and we're kind of all in this together. So let's just keep rolling.
Thank you, Lisa. We have two more. Brad, wait. Lisa, you go ahead.
Okay, yeah, the scenarios were good, gives us some ideas of things we'll encounter out there and gets us thinking about, you know, how we'll deal with it. And yeah, thanks, Brad. It's great things you've done. Really making lemonade out of all the lemons there. And also too, I looked at your website and it gives me good ideas about how I should present, you know, because you can look up the individual advocates and see the way that they, like how I can help and why I became a professional healthcare advocate. So it gives me good ideas. So,
good.
And obviously,
one more thing, with the blogging, you know, everybody that's on the site can submit blogs, even if you've written them for your own or newsletters or whatever, you could just throw them in there and we'll get them all over the place, make them look real pretty and get them to an audience. So if there are, you know, whistleblowers or people that want to, like, you know, have a voice and make themselves heard and get it out there, let's do it. That's what it's all about.
Thank you, Lisa. And Sonia.
Hi, thank you, Bradley, for sharing your story with us this evening. That was a very, very powerful story. And I did look at the website as well as we were going through class as you were speaking. And, you know, I always look at everything from an Indigenous perspective, and there's nothing related to Indigenous people on there at all. So that gives me like a great opportunity to be a great resource for many people. And so it just keeps giving me ideas. And sometimes these ideas just cannot slow down as far as what I can do to help my people.
Awesome.
And even at the beginning of class, when we were going over those forms, the NANA-INA, which is the National Alaska Native American Indian Nurses Association, they had their conference a couple of weeks ago. And my partner in crime, she attended and she gave a presentation there. And we're always trying to think of ways of indigenizing the healthcare system. And the forms that we went over in class, we had talked about, we need to start including more cultural aspect into the DNR, into all these other forms that are required as well. So it just kind of all linked together with everything this evening. I just feel like it's really amazing all the things that we are going to do to help the healthcare system get better. And then just for all of us to remember that nursing goes along with social justice, and that we should always remember that in the back of our heads every time we go to advocate for our patients, because sometimes we get a lot of flack for advocating for our patients, but that's who we are. That's what we do. And I just wanted to remind everybody of that tonight. But thank you very much, Bradley, for sharing your story. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Sonia. And Brad, do you have any takeaways for us before we give you our sign language checking out of here?
No, nothing that I've already said. You guys are awesome. Thank
Okay,
you. Thank you
so
for
I
having
just
me.
want to say, don't forget that we're off next Wednesday and we'll be back in class. And then you have 2 dates, the last 2 Wednesdays, to let me know which date you'd like to do your presentation. So let's all say, thank you, Brad. Much love to you. We are glad that you joined us. We are moved and thank you so much. Okay.
All right.
All right. See you all later.
Bye.
Bye. Safe travels, Matthew.
Hey, Karen.
Hey,